Imagine your brain quietly overheating, your body sending you a simple signal to fix it, and you deliberately stop it. A tiny moment, just holding back a yawn, but inside your head, something important is being interrupted. A yawn seems so ordinary, so unimportant. We suppress it in meetings, in classrooms, in conversations, almost as if it's something embarrassing. But what if that simple reflex is actually one of your brain's oldest and most clever survival tools? Think about what happens when you yawn. Your mouth opens wide, your lungs pull in a deep breath, your jaw stretches, your eyes may even water. It feels almost refreshing, like a reset button you didn't know you pressed. But this isn't random. Your brain is doing something very precise. Your brain is incredibly sensitive to temperature. Just like a computer, it works best within a narrow range. Even a small increase can affect how clearly you think, how fast you react, how well you focus. So the question is, how does your brain cool itself down? One answer might surprise you: yawning. When you yawn, several things happen at once. Cool air rushes into your mouth and sinuses. Blood flow in your face increases. The stretching of your jaw acts like a pump, pushing warmer blood away from your brain and allowing slightly cooler blood to circulate back in. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room. Suddenly, everything feels clearer. Now imagine interrupting that process. When you suppress a yawn, you're essentially stopping your brain mid-cooling cycle. The signal was sent, the system was ready, but the action never completes. It's like turning on a fan and then unplugging it just as it starts to spin. Have you ever noticed that when you hold back a yawn, you feel slightly uncomfortable? Maybe your eyes strain a little. Maybe your head feels heavier, your focus slightly blurred. That's not just in your imagination. That's your brain missing the reset it asked for. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Yawning is often contagious. You see someone yawn and suddenly you feel the urge to. Why would that happen? It turns out this might be linked to empathy and social connection, your brain sensing with others around you. But it also suggests something deeper. Maybe your brain is constantly scanning, constantly adjusting, constantly trying to stay in its optimal state. So when you suppress a yawn, you're not just stopping a reflex, you're ignoring a signal that says pause, reset, breathe. Of course, one suppressed yawn won't damage your brain, but the habit, the constant override of natural signals, can slowly disconnect you from what your body is trying to tell you. Fatigue builds, focus slips, mental clarity fades just a little more than it should. Now think about this. In a world where we chase productivity, where we push through tiredness, where we silence even the smallest signs of rest, what else are we suppressing without realizing it? Maybe a yawn isn't a weakness. Maybe it's intelligence, a quiet automatic system keeping your brain balanced, cool and ready. So the next time you feel that urge rising, the slow stretch, the deep breath, pause for a moment, and instead of stopping it, let it happen. Because sometimes the smallest actions are your brain's way of taking care of you in ways you're only just beginning to understand. Imagine you're sitting in a quiet room, trying to focus, trying to stay sharp, and suddenly a yawn begins to rise. You feel it building, slow, unstoppable like a wave. And just before it peaks, you shut it down. You tighten your jaw, force it back, and pretend nothing happened. But inside your brain, something important was just left unfinished. Because a yawn is not just a sign of boredom. It's not laziness. It's not disrespect. It's a biological message, ancient, automatic, and deeply intelligent. Your brain consumes about 20% of your body's energy, even though it's only a small fraction of your weight. It's constantly working, constantly firing, constantly generating heat. And just like any powerful machine, heat is a problem. Too much of it and performance drops. Reactions slow. Thinking becomes foggy. Decisions become less precise. So your body evolved a solution. Yawning. When you yawn, your breathing pattern changes dramatically. You take in a deep, slow breath that floods your system with oxygen. Your heart rate shifts. The muscles in your face and neck stretch wide, increasing blood circulation. And most importantly, cooler air interacts with the blood vessels near your brain, subtly helping regulate its temperature. It's like your brain is saying, I need a reset right now. But what happens when you refuse? When you suppress a yawn, you interrupt this entire sequence. The breath never fully deepens. The cooling effect never fully completes. The circulation boost is cut short, and your brain keeps running, just a little warmer, a little slower, a little less clear. It's not dramatic. It's not instant damage. It's subtle. But subtle changes, repeated again and again, shape how you feel. Think about those moments in long lectures, long drives, or late nights. You're tired, but you push through. You ignore the yawns. You fight them. And slowly your mind drifts. Focus slips through your fingers. You reread the same sentence again and again. You miss small details. What if part of that isn't just tiredness, but interruption? Interruption of a natural reset your brain was trying to perform. And then there's something even more fascinating. Yawning tends to happen during transitions, when you're waking up, when you're getting sleepy, when your attention shifts. It's almost like a bridge between states of consciousness, a recalibration, a moment where your brain reorganizes itself to match what comes next. So when you stop a yawn, you're not just stopping a movement. You might be resisting a transition your brain is trying to make. Pause and think about that. How often do we resist what our body naturally asks for? We drink coffee instead of resting. We stare at screens instead of blinking. We suppress yawns instead of breathing deeply. We override signals again and again in the name of control. But what if control isn't always about forcing? What if it's about listening? A yawn is one of the simplest ways your body speaks to you. No words, no effort. Just a quiet signal. Something needs to adjust. And maybe, just maybe, the smartest thing you can do in that moment is nothing at all. Just let it happen. Let your jaw stretch. Let the air flow in. Let your brain cool, reset, and realign. Because in a universe full of complex systems and hidden mechanisms, sometimes the smallest reflexes carry the deepest intelligence. And the next time a yawn begins to rise, don't see it as something to hide. See it as your brain taking care of itself. Imagine you're on the edge of a thought, trying to understand something, trying to stay present, and a yawn begins to form. It interrupts you, almost annoyingly, like your body is pulling you away from the moment. So you stop it, you resist, you push forward. But what if that interruption was actually the help you needed? Because your brain doesn't work in a straight line. It pulses, it shifts, it cycles between effort and recovery, focus and reset. And a yawn might be one of the smallest visible signs of that hidden rhythm. Inside your skull, billions of neurons are constantly communicating. Electrical signals fire, chemical messages travel. Networks activate and deactivate in patterns we're only beginning to understand. And all of this activity produces not just thoughts, but heat, pressure, and metabolic waste. So your brain has systems to manage that. It adjusts blood flow, it regulates oxygen, it clears out byproducts through fluid movement. And somewhere in this delicate balance, yawning appears again and again, like a quiet assistant helping everything stay in sync. When you yawn, it's not just about air, it's about timing. The deep inhale changes the rhythm of your breathing. The stretch activates nerves connected to alertness. The brief pause afterward creates a moment of stillness, almost like a reset between two mental states. It's small, but powerful. Now imagine cutting that moment short. No full breath, no stretch, no pause. It's like skipping the punctuation in a sentence. The words are still there, but the meaning becomes harder to follow. Have you ever noticed how a complete yawn feels satisfying? There's a sense of completion, like finishing something your body started. But when you suppress it, there's a lingering discomfort, an unfinished loop. Your brain asked for a reset and didn't get one. And over time, these unfinished moments can stack. Not as damage you can see, but as clarity you slowly lose. Your attention becomes more fragile. Your reactions slightly delayed. Your thoughts just a bit less sharp than they could be. Not because something is wrong, but because something small, natural, and necessary keeps being interrupted. And yet, we've trained ourselves to do exactly that. In quiet rooms, we hide yawns to appear attentive. In conversations, we suppress them to seem engaged. In work and study, we fight them as if they are obstacles instead of signals. But what if they are not interruptions of focus What if they are part of focus? What if your brain knows exactly when it needs to pause, recalibrate, and continue more efficiently? Think of a musician tuning an instrument. The pauses between notes are just as important as the notes themselves. Without them, the music becomes noise. Your mind works the same way, and a yawn might be one of those pauses. A brief, involuntary moment where your brain fine-tunes itself so the next thought can be clearer, sharper, more alive. So the next time it happens, when that slow wave begins to rise, don't rush to stop it. Let it unfold. Feel the stretch. Feel the breath. Feel the quiet reset that follows. Because in that simple act, your brain is not losing control. It's restoring it. And maybe the real question isn't why we yawn, but why we ever decided to resist it in the first place. Imagine you're in the middle of your day, talking, working, scrolling, and a yawn quietly begins to rise again. Not the first one, not even the second, and this time you hesitate. You wonder, why does this keep happening? Is it just tiredness? Or is your brain trying to tell you something deeper? Because yawning doesn't always mean sleep. You can yawn when you're bored, when you're stressed, even when you're about to do something important. Skydivers yawn before jumping. Athletes yawn before competition. Your brain, strangely, calls for this reflex not just in rest, but in moments of transition, tension, and heightened awareness. Why would that be? Think about stress for a moment. When you're anxious or under pressure, your breathing becomes shallow. Your muscles tighten, your mind races. Your body shifts into a state of alert, but not always a balanced one. It's like an engine revving too high without proper airflow. And then a yawn breaks through, a deep involuntary inhale, a long exhale, a stretch that cuts through the tension. For a brief second, everything slows down. Your breathing resets. Your nervous system recalibrates. It's almost as if your body is correcting you. But again, what happens when you stop it? You stay in that shallow breathing pattern. The tension lingers. The reset never arrives. And your brain continues operating in a slightly strained state, trying to maintain performance without the balance it needs. Now zoom out for a second. Your body is full of signals like this. Hunger tells you to eat. Thirst tells you to drink. Pain tells you to protect. And yawning quietly, subtly, tells you to reset. But unlike hunger or pain, we've learned to ignore it, to hide it, to suppress it. And in doing so, we might be missing one of the simplest ways our brain maintains its rhythm. Because your brain isn't designed to run endlessly at peak intensity. It's designed to oscillate, to rise and fall, to focus and release, to engage and recover. And yawning may be one of the smallest, most overlooked parts of that cycle. A micro reset, a breath that goes deeper than usual, a stretch that reaches places you didn't know were tense. A moment where your brain says, pause just for a second. And here's the strange beauty of it. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It simply begins. A reminder that no matter how structured, controlled, or busy your life becomes, there are still ancient systems inside you quietly working to keep everything in balance. So maybe the real harm isn't just in suppressing a yawn. Maybe it's in what that habit represents. The idea that every signal must be controlled. Every instinct overridden, every pause eliminated. But what if those pauses are where clarity lives? What if that simple yawn is your brain's way of protecting your focus, your energy, your awareness? Next time it happens, don't rush past it. Let it expand. Let it complete. Let your body finish what it started. Because sometimes the smallest interruptions are actually the deepest forms of intelligence. And in a universe built on balance, rhythm, and flow, even a yawn has its place. Imagine a world where your brain never asked for a break. No pauses, no resets, just constant uninterrupted thinking, faster and faster, hotter and hotter, until clarity begins to melt into confusion. Now imagine that the only thing standing between you and that slow mental blur is something as small as a yawn. It sounds almost too simple, too ordinary to matter. But the human body has never relied on complexity alone. Some of its smartest systems are hidden inside the simplest actions. And yawning might be one of them. Deep inside your brain, activity never truly stops. Even when your resting networks are firing, organizing memories, processing information from your day. It's like a city that never sleeps, lights always on, energy always flowing. But even cities need ventilation. Without fresh air, without circulation, things become stagnant, heavy, less efficient. Your brain is no different. A yawn acts like a sudden opening, a brief moment where everything shifts. Your breathing deepens beyond its normal rhythm. Your chest expands. Your facial muscles stretch wide, stimulating nerves that connect directly to alertness and awareness. Blood flow changes. Pressure subtly adjusts. And for a moment, everything resets, not dramatically, not visibly, but just enough. Now think about what happens when that moment is denied. It's like skipping a blink. At first, nothing seems wrong, but hold your eyes open long enough and they begin to burn, to blur, to lose clarity. Blinking isn't dramatic either, but without it, vision suffers. Yawning may play a similar role for your mind. A tiny, automatic act preserving something you don't even realize is slipping, and yet we resist it because of how it looks, because of what others might think, because we've labeled it as boredom, as disinterest, as weakness. But your brain doesn't care about appearances. It cares about function. It sends the signal anyway, again and again and again, until you either listen or continue to ignore it. And here's the quiet truth. Your brain is always communicating with you, not in words, but in sensations, in impulses, in small, almost invisible nudges that guide you back toward balance. A yawn is one of those nudges. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't force you to stop everything. It simply asks for a moment, a breath, a stretch, a reset. So the next time you feel it rising, don't see it as an inconvenience. Don't rush to hide it or push it away. Instead, be curious. What was your brain just doing? Were you losing focus? Feeling tense? Drifting between thoughts? Moving from one state to another? Because in that tiny moment, your brain may be doing something extraordinary, using one of the oldest tools it has to keep you sharp, aware, and alive in the present. And maybe the real mystery isn't why we yawn, but how something so small can quietly hold together the clarity of our entire inner world. Imagine you could hear your brain speak, not in words, but in quiet signals woven into your body. No sentences, no explanations, just sensations. A blink, a breath, a stretch, a yawn. And now imagine how often you've ignored it, because in the rush of modern life, we've learned to trust schedules more than signals. We wake up to alarms instead of feeling rested. We eat by the clock instead of hunger. And when a yawn rises soft, natural, inevitable, we treat it like an interruption instead of a message. But your brain is older than your habits. Followed or long before screens, long before deadlines, long before social rules, your brain evolved to survive in a world where missing a signal could mean losing everything. It learned to regulate itself with incredible precision, adjusting energy, attention, and awareness moment by moment. And yawning became part of that language. A language without words, but full of meaning. It might mean your brain needs cooling. It might mean your breathing needs depth. It might mean you're shifting from one state of awareness to another, waking, resting, focusing, drifting. It might even mean your mind is preparing itself, getting ready to perform better. But whatever the reason, it's never random. And yet, we treat it like it is. We suppress it mid-breath. We tighten our jaws. We silence the signal before it completes. And in that small act, we create a disconnect, a gap between what the body asks for and what we allow. At first, that gap feels invisible, but over time, it grows. You feel more mentally drained than you should. Focus takes more effort. Clarity doesn't last as long. You push harder, thinking the solution is more discipline, more control, more force. When maybe the answer was never force. Maybe it was listening. Because the human brain doesn't just need stimulation. It needs rhythm. It needs cycles of intensity and release, effort and recovery. And yawning might be one of the simplest ways it maintains that rhythm, like a quiet metronome, keeping everything in balance. Miss a beat and the rhythm starts to slip. Not all at once, not dramatically, but just enough to feel off. So the next time a yawn begins to rise, don't rush to stop it. Don't hide it like it's something to be ashamed of. Instead, pause. Let it unfold naturally. Let the breath deepen. Let the stretch complete. Let your brain finish what it started. because in that moment, you're not losing focus. You're restoring it. And maybe, in a world that constantly pushes you to override your instincts, the most intelligent thing you can do is to trust them again. Because sometimes, the smallest signals are the ones that understand you best.